Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the new and improved show, the Sunday roundup, the Sunday Shitbag roundup, as my friend said. And we've made a change to the format of the show. As I said in a previous show, if anyone was paying attention, you probably weren't. Who gives a fuck? You're like, who is this asshole? And he's talking about changes he made. I don't even know who he is. Fair enough. We're going to get into that. We're going to learn about it. So normally, this is the Relief Valve Podcast. Welcome. This is filmed in front of a live studio audience. Fuck you. Boo! Yeah, boo you too. It was filmed in front of a live studio audience, and we used to be Mondays and Fridays, and because of a crazy schedule and a crazy family schedule, because I'm not a regular YouTubing fucking guy, so I can't post 5 times a day, every day, Monday through Friday. I have a life, I have a job, I have fucking things going on. So, with the new format, I'm going to upload when I can Monday through Friday, or when a big news event or something happens and I'm able to put it in. I'm gonna upload a show on we're on YouTube, Rumble, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, and a whole bunch of others that I read to you on a previous show. It's just Buzzsprout automatically uploads to a whole bunch of other audio platforms, so you can find us on all of that. And you're like, great, Matt, but how the fuck do we know where to find you? Well, if you already listened to it, you already fucking did it. So I'd love to know how you figure that out. So, and we need the listener, we need the viewers and subscribers on YouTube. We also need them on Rumble. Why? Because YouTube isn't a free speech platform. YouTube is a left-wing, keep the truth from you platform. This is why Louder with Crowder left and they went to Rumble. That's why others are going to more than likely end up on Rumble. Rumble is the up-and-coming platform that's really going to give everybody a free voice. They're not shot down by free speech. There are things that I can't talk about on YouTube when I post. I can't be more forthcoming with COVID vaccines. I'm not allowed to do that. In fact, I have a strike that it had taken me off the air for a week when I first did it, and now it's set to expire about April 17th, where it'll be wiped off my account as if it never happened. And that matters because after like 3 of them, I can be wiped off of YouTube completely. And also, it takes away your ability to make any sort of money on YouTube as well, becoming monetized, having commercials, which I don't really want to do, but, super chats where people can volunteer and they can donate to you and your show to help, promote it, help with all your expenses and keep it growing. So that's the problem with YouTube. I can't be forthcoming with some of that information. They'll end up giving me another strike. And on Rumble, I can be more forthcoming with that. I can have more free speech there, and I can talk to you about it. So it's tough. When I do the audio portion, I can talk about whatever I want because I pay for that show out of pocket. And that access out of pocket, I can say whatever I want. But if I want to live stream to YouTube and Rumble, it becomes a little more problematic. So anyone that supports the show, and I've had people reach out to me, I said this in the previous show, anyone that wants to support financially by, tipping your information broker, I really appreciate it. There's options out there. I have PayPal currently set up. It's on YouTube and Rumble. You click the little PayPal icon, and you can donate to me through my PayPal. In addition, on the audio portion of the show, it says to support this show. It will also bring you to that link, and you can support the show. I really appreciate it. I currently pay out of pocket for everything that is involved with the show, and I do not receive any compensation whatsoever currently. We're a small show. I'm trying to grow. I'm at the bottom of the ladder looking up at everybody else that's already there with 100,000 or 1 million or whatever, and I'm trying to make my way through this crazy world. So as I promised, with changes that are coming to the show, and my buddy at Keith that I Love What I Do Media, who can help, he's one of the sponsors of the show, and it's also because he's been such a big help, and he's helped me with the online portions and new graphics and all of that. He's great. So check out his page, ilovewhatidomedia.com, or you can email him at Keith at ilovewhatidomedia, and he can help you set up your online business or help your business grow to expanding online. And I was talking to him about making changes to the show and where I go from here. So originally I had said I was taking a 2-week hiatus while I figured everything out. And he said, well, the problem is with that is you're going to end up losing some listeners and some followers if you go a little too long. We got American Military News with an update here. Winter storm, the left storms the Tennessee Capitol. Is that the left-wing shitbags stormed the Capitol in Tennessee, the government capital, to complain about weapons and not about transgenders shooting at your kids. That's the real problem. The gun didn't shoot those kids. A mentally ill tranny did. But I digress. So he said, you go too long, you're going to lose listeners and people that are following the show. And that's true, fair enough. I mean, as not only someone who produces news and humor and entertainment here with my show, I'm also a consumer of all of that as well, right? I listen to the Daily Wire. I listen to Ben Shapiro. I listen and watch Ben Shapiro, Louder with Crowder, Tim Pool, Timcast IRL. And if they were to disappear, take a hiatus, you don't really know what's going on, you would also, and I myself, would also automatically branch on to just something else that gave me information. It's just the nature of the beast, I'm afraid. It's... you want something that has some sort of regular process to it, and it's frustrating if it doesn't. So, originally I was doing a Monday and Friday show. I needed to make some changes that work for me in my personal life. So, if we grow and we get thousands of more people as we go down the road, right, and the demand is there, I'll add in shows, and I'm getting help, and because I can only post 6 hours a month. And when I really get into a rant and all the news that's going on, I can go well over an hour for each show. So it's like a couple of shows a month. And then after that, I go over. There's a fee for it for going over. And, it becomes problematic. So the more support we get, the more people jumping in and supporting financially, and the more that the demand for the show grows, I can add in more shows, and I can either go back to a regular schedule or, hell, if I have to, fucking Sunday to Sunday. Whatever it is I have to do, Monday to Sunday, the whole week, whatever I have to do. But in the meantime, this is a little more conducive. So, again, Monday through Friday, I'll post up when I can, when important things are happening, and communicate with all of you and give you the updates and the news that you're looking for. And then Sunday, today's show, is going to be the shitbag roundup, as my buddy Keith said, and there'll be some shitbags in there for sure. As you're looking at this one, the ex-CDC head finally says what we've all known forever about the source of COVID-19. So at least I'm allowed to talk about where COVID-19 came from. YouTube allows that because they can't really suppress it anymore. The vaccines, whole different thing. Can't fucking talk about it. But unless I parrot the shitbag sellout doctors that they have. If I parrot them, it's perfectly fine. If I give you some additional information aside from that with things that are going on, I can't, and my show will be removed or I'll get a strike. So, one of the other new things that I've added in to the show is a conspiracy theory section. And, addition to the aliens, which kind of fits into all of this, but it's always been so interesting to me to learn about the shit, and really anyone that has a As my mom used to say, inquiring minds want to know, which means, like it was an old-fashioned joke, whereas you're being nosy and you want to know what's going on, but inquiring minds want to know. We want to know what's going on. So I'm adding a conspiracy theory section to the show. This is going to be exclusive to the Sunday show, which we're obviously doing today, unless you're in a time warp or you're under a rock and you don't know what day it is. It's Sunday! If you give a shit, because you're living under a rock and eating worms. So you probably don't give a fuck that it's Sunday. But for anybody else, it's Sunday. We're going to do the conspiracy theory, and we're going to add that into the end part of the show. So the sounds, I've been working on the sounds. I wanted to clip everything and have them in a more easily accessible thing because, again, and I said this in a previous show, I don't know if anyone's noticed, if you don't pay for YouTube, I used to, and it's like $12.95 a month to pay for fucking YouTube. It's ridiculous. And that's no commercials, no interruptions. And it's like, I can almost get fucking, other streaming services. Netflix has gone up to $20. It's like, I'm going to pay you $12. I can get 2 other streaming services for your fucking price. So the problem is that I don't pay for YouTube. And I have all my sound bites and my clips that I've kind of put together, funny stuff, and I run them throughout the show as part of the show. Like, Crowder was an inspiration for that. It's just the sound bites and the funny shit that you put into the show while you're doing it. And I did it, and the commercials are crazy. It's like, to move from one clip, and I'll do a sound bite, to move to another one, and it's another fucking annoying commercial, which just breaks the magic of the show, right? You're sitting down, you're looking for an experience, you're listening to me run my mouth and go nuts and fucking go crazy over some issue, and then all of a sudden I try to play you a sound bite, and it's like, oh, would you like to play this fucking shit game that sucks? It's like, no, YouTube, fuck off. But there's way too many commercials. So I'm trying to find a way that will more streamline. I can cut, edit, clip those pieces into something else that I want. And I haven't been able to make it work yet. I downloaded Audacity and I ran them and I recorded off of it. And it just, especially for the shorter ones, it didn't catch it the way that I wanted. So I've got to find something else that really works. But in the meantime, we're going to run with what we have, and I'm just going to do the best I can. Yeah, all right. I'm surprised there isn't a fucking commercial right now, to be honest with you. I know, boo! All right, we're moving on with the show. I know, you don't want to hear any more fucking shit. All right, so here we go, right? Daily Wire reporting. This is from last week. I teased it. We're going to get some other stories that I wasn't able to get to. So CDC finally gives out some additional information about the source of COVID-19. So I was reading the transcript from former Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, Director Robert Redfield's testimony from earlier this month. Robert Redfield, one of the former directors, as this said, from the CDC. He gave testimony at Congress about what he believes is going on, what he has seen and kind of experienced through this whole thing. And in the testimony, he said, yeah, it came from Wuhan. There's no other way. It wasn't a fucking Chinese guy who ate a bat because that bat had fucked a pangolin or the pangolin had fucked the bat, and then he made bat soup, and then he got fucking sick from it. That was the bullshit narrative that the Chinese government wanted you to believe. And more of the fact was one of two things. They were experimenting with this already, and there was mishandling of it at the facility because the Wuhan facility has had a couple of strikes against it for not treating viruses and the handling of the viruses properly. The other is it was the beginning of a bioweapon. They were making it on purpose. And there was a mistake. It got out, and then we have what we've been dealing with currently. Either way, it's not good for anybody in the world, and it's not good for the Chinese government. But from earlier this month before the House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic. Yes, this is what I do in my spare time, says this fucking writer. And I gotta say, I missed something kind of big. The headlines that came that day from the ex-CDC chief focused on Dr. Anthony Fauci, who Redfield said sidelined anyone who dared question him on the origin of SARS-CoV-2, which causes COVID-19. But the doctor also said something fascinating about the Wuhan Institute of Virology in Wuhan, China, where scientists were reportedly doing gain-of-function work on coronaviruses, partly funded by U.S. taxpayers at the behest of Fauci. In September of 2019, 3 things happened in that lab, Redfield said in the hearing. One is they deleted sequences, which was highly irregular. Researchers don't usually like to do that. Second thing they did was they changed the command and control of the lab from the civilian control to the military control, which, if anyone knows anything about China, it was under military control the entire time. That's just that's just a caveat to it. It was already there. The second thing they did was change the command and control of the military, highly unusual, and I've been involved in dual-use labs when I was in the military, Redfield said. And the third thing they did, which I think is really telling, is that they let a contractor redo the ventilation system in the laboratory. So I think clearly there was strong evidence that there was a significant event that happened in the laboratory in September, the doctor said. So here's somebody from Substack who put up the Dr. Robert Redfield, the former CDC director, talks about 3 suspicious events that took place at the Wuhan lab in September of 19. In September 19, 3 things happened in the lab. One is blah, 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 blah. And I'll play a little bit of Dr. Redfield's interview from in front of Congress.
I will say, if you go back and look, it's declassified now. And I'm sure you all have your classified briefings. But the declassified information now, in September of 2019, 3 things happened in that lab. One is they deleted the sequences. It was highly irregular. So researchers don't usually like to do that. Second thing they did was they changed the command and control of the lab from the civilian control to the military control. Highly unusual. I've been involved in dual-use labs when I was in the military. And the third thing they did, which I think is really telling, is they let a contractor redo the ventilation system in that laboratory. So I think clearly there was strong evidence that there was a significant event that happened in that laboratory in September. It's now been declassified. You can read it. I'm sure there's more classified information around.
So there's Dr. Redfield. This is a professional. He ran the CDC, not from the shitbag chick that runs it now that lies to you on a daily basis. Here he is saying the entire thing was unnatural. It shouldn't have happened that way, and it points to obvious issues. That's not at all what Fauci said. This continues. For years, the nation's top immunologist asserted that the virus appeared naturally, mutating from animals to infect humans. In April 2020, Fauci cited a study that found the virus's mutations are consistent with a jump of a species from animal to human. That's bullshit. But if you go into, and there's a biography that the Daily Wire did, Michael Knowles did on Fauci, and looks into his past. Fauci is an absolute disaster. He's an absolute failure. When he was there for the AIDS epidemic, and he had no idea how the AIDS was spreading or how people were getting infected, he was suggesting that a family couldn't sit down and share a bowl of cereal from the same box of cereal, or, things like that, because you could then transmit the AIDS from one person to another person. Instead of saying that it was the homosexual community and it was sexual interaction that was how you spread the AIDS, and through blood and through fluid transfer. This guy is an absolute failure throughout the years, throughout time, from when I was young. I'm 43. From the beginning of his career, Fauci is an absolute failure. He's never gotten anything right. And not only did he screw up the COVID situation, but he was hiding details and information about the COVID situation. He was getting emails from other doctors and other researchers out there saying, I think this is artificially created, and we have a problem here, and we need to discuss it, and we need to look into, what this situation is. And he was hiding it. He was keeping below the radar and keeping it away from the American people. when he was being interviewed about wearing masks, and you can see you can go on YouTube and you can still find these interviews. He was saying, "Don't wear the mask. It doesn't do anything. It's not going to help you." And there's other things that you can do in order to keep yourself safe. And then he claimed that the reason he said that was so that there wasn't a mass panicked rush of people going to the store and going on to Amazon ordering masks in bulk for themselves and their family, which would take away from nurses and doctors at hospitals who were going to need those masks, because you were going to end up with a mask shortage. So he lied about that. And then he came out with it after the fact that was the reason he lied about it, so there wasn't a shortage about it. And then, as you find out down the road, the mask did little to nothing at all. The bandito mask, the bandana that everyone wore to look cool, and it came down to your neck and it looked like you were going to rob a train. They did absolutely nothing. And the cloth masks did almost the same. It was really an N95, a proper rated N95 or better. That was the one that you could wear that you would get some protection for yourself. And even then, you had to be trained professionally, really, or some sort of training and education for it in order to utilize the mask properly. I had a family member who was a nurse, and they said that they go through professional training in their career in order to use the N95 masks in the hospital, how to handle them, how to change one out and put a fresh one on, and how to not contaminate it throughout your day while you're using it. And no one was using those. Little to no one was using those masks properly, right? You put it on, you thought you felt better, and then you were like, my face is itchy, so you're touching it with a contaminated hand that's been fucking interacting with everything else, right? So you touch it or you pull it down to drink something, which you've now exposed yourself to COVID-19. The fucking stupid things they had on airplanes, like you have to leave your mask on, but when you're going to eat and drink, you can take the mask down so you can eat and drink, because you can't fucking eat and drink through a mask. And then you have to slip your little mask back up after you're done. And it's like COVID is sitting there like Yosemite Sam. Oh, I was going to get him, but he's eating and drinking. And then he put it right back on again. And like COVID's jumping on his hat like Yosemite does when he gets angry. Like the fucking virus was waiting there and like, you got me. You kept it on until you ate something on the plane, and then when you're done eating, you slipped it back on again, and I couldn't get you. No, I'm going to get you. It was virtue signaling bullshit. None of that worked. You went to the dentist. I took my daughter to get dental work done. They're like, we have to wear a mask in the store. For everyone's safety, you have to wear, you all gotta have the fucking mask on. I'm like, you're gonna be working on my daughter's mouth. You're gonna be directly in her face and in her fucking mouth. You're gonna have to take the mask off. You're not gonna fucking drill a hole like you're an old-timey person robbing a bank, and you're gonna go in there. You gotta take the mask down and you gotta work on her, which is gonna expose everyone to COVID. So how the fuck does that work? And it was all feel good, feel better bullshit. So you wore your mask in the waiting room to make everyone feel good, to feel better about what was happening. And then you went in to get your dental work done, and everyone's in your fucking face and in your mouth. You're in your fucking open organ here, fucking working. And COVID's going, oh, you smart cookies. You wore the mask in the waiting room, but then you went to go get your dental treatment, and then you took it down, and I wasn't fucking paying attention. I was watching Golden Girls, and I missed that you guys took it down. Like, the second it can transfer is going to transfer. So the whole thing was fucking bullshit. And this was pushed by Fauci, pushed by the radical left. There are assholes right now that still wear the fucking masks. They drive in their car and they wear the mask. My chiropractor still wears her fucking mask while she's treating people. Absolutely ridiculous. It's not doing anything. It's not protecting you. It's not protecting others. It's a fucking virtue signaling garbage. And that's what left-wing sissies do. Because the left-wing are afraid to face adversity. So if they can be the boy in the bubble, like that movie John Travolta or whatever it was in, if they can be the boy in the bubble, or the girl in the bubble, or the non-binary person in the bubble, that's exactly what they'll do. And they'll think that they're protected themselves from it. And it's actually a whole bunch of virtue signaling, emotional bullshit that doesn't work. Okay, so we're going to keep going here. I went off on a rant. That's going to happen often. You like the show, you're following the show. Maybe you like the rants. The rants are going to happen. They're part of the fucking show. So, let's see. We got our fucking sounds here. Here's the other sound.
Nazi fags.
Nazi
Download
fags.
the Domino's app
It's
today
a
and become
fucking
a piece of the high rewards
commercial.
Never
Yay! Shut the fuck up. You see what I mean? I play a sound, and then I gotta get a shit fucking commercial in order to play my goddamn sound. Alright, so we're gonna continue on. Nazi fags. We're not all Nazi fags. Stop it. That was Biden. So in April 2020, the story continues. Fauci cited a study that found the virus's mutations are consistent with the jump of species from animal to human, which we know now is garbage. There was a study recently, Fauci told reporters on April 17th of 2020, when asked if it was possible that the virus came from a Chinese lab, where a group of highly qualified evolutionary virologists looking at the sequences in bats as they evolve and the mutations that it took to get to the point where it is now is totally consistent with the jump of species from an animal to a human. So the paper will be available. I don't have the authors right now, but we can make it available to you, Fauci said, because he's a fucking liar. And I can't give you a paper of my lies because they're lies. So there's no truth behind it. I'm going to print you a paper that says blah, 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 because I'm fucking lying. And that's what Fauci was doing, lying. The email showed Fauci prompted that very study to disprove the theory that the virus leaked from the Wuhan lab in China. In fact, he had final approval of the scientific paper he had commissioned. The paper, entitled The Proximal Origin of SARS-CoV-2, was delivered to Fauci for final approval before it was published in Nature Medicine on February 17, 2020. The paper was written 4 days after Fauci and his NIH boss, Francis Collins, another shitbag, held a call with the 4 authors to discuss reports that COVID-19 may have leaked from the Wuhan lab and may have been intentionally genetically manipulated, the Post wrote. The House Oversight Subcommittee examining COVID released emails earlier this month that show the paper's co-author, Dr. Kristen Anderson, said Fauci prompted him to write the paper with the specific goal to disprove the lab leak theory, the Daily Wire reported. So, in case you didn't know, Fauci was going out of his way during this time period to have papers and information produced that disprove this theory and just basically said, it wasn't from the lab, it came from a fucking bat, and the bat fucked a fucking turtle, and that's the reason you got the... And then a Chinese guy was like, I don't have a lot of money, but I'm hungry, so I went to a wet fucking market, and then he bought bat, and that bat had fucked, 20 different things, and then he ate that, and he got COVID. And that was the bullshit at the beginning that they were trying to push to everybody that was out-and-out lies. So the proof, in case you didn't already know, anyone with a functioning brain already knew. I didn't get the shot. I didn't buy the other bullshit. It came from a wet market release. I didn't buy any of that shit. I did my homework. I paid attention online. I read what was happening, and online isn't going to tell you the direct thing, right? You got to take the pieces and you got to put them all together from multiple sources, and then go, something about this isn't right. And then it was a wet market. It was from the fucking virology lab that was 20 miles or less down the road. That's where it came from. So it continues. During the House Select Subcommittee this month, Redfield also said Fauci actively sought to exclude or silence anyone who failed to embrace his chosen narrative. He claimed Fauci intentionally excluded him from conversations because he refused to fall in line. There is a priority decision that there's one point of view that we're going to put out there. Anyone who doesn't agree with it is going to be sidelined. And as I say, I was the only CDC director I was sidelined, Redfield said. Wait for the next shoe to fall, and it still doesn't add up. And this is views expressed from the author and don't necessarily represent those of the Daily Wire and, and yada yada. But so for now, and at the end of the show, we're going to be talking about conspiracy theories, and the kind of term conspiracy theory was made to shoot down and disassociate someone from the information that they're trying to give from you, to give to you. It's meant to. Why can't I find the word? I can't find the word. But it's meant to seem that everyone that is saying that this thing is crazy. And that's why conspiracy theory has gone from, we're talking about a thing that's outside of the norm, to somebody who is saying crazy things with their tinfoil hat on that they make no sense, they're ridiculous. They don't actually matter. And then it comes to find out that a lot of these conspiracy theories are absolutely discredit. That's the word I was looking for. Discredit. Why the fuck I couldn't come up with that? I knew it was a D. I just couldn't remember which one. Discredit people who are trying to say the truth about something that's happening, trying to get information to you. And they're discredited by it. By saying you're a conspiracy theorist. This guy thinks, he thinks this thing? Oh yeah, he also fucking thinks this thing. Guy's out of his mind. That's the point of what this term has been twisted and convoluted into, is that, it's Matt and his conspiracy theories. Yeah, you can listen to that if you want a good time, and then not take anything seriously. So in the beginning, you could be of this. You could be deleted off Twitter. You could be deleted off Facebook, or you could be imposed with some sort of penalty for it, where your account was suspended or otherwise, and YouTube, and you weren't allowed to talk about this. Now, so much information has come out about it at this point that they simply can't deny you or punish you for it anymore. They have to acknowledge the possibility that it came from the Wuhan lab. So the next thing is going to be the vaccines. I use a bunny ear quotations. The vaccines of a particular nature, if you know what I'm saying. And you can't talk about them right now unless you use one of the subscribed doctors from the WHO or somewhere else, one of the sellout shitbags that YouTube subscribes to. If you listen to one of the sellout shitbags, and you parrot their garbage, you can talk about that vaccine. What I call the T-virus. You can talk about the T-virus. But if you don't, and you say something else about what other people may or may not be going through, you'll have a strike against your account. You'll be shut down. You won't be able to disseminate any information to anyone. So, and they do this under the guise of protecting the populace, because the best thing for you is to go out and get your vaccine and 500 boosters. That's the thing that's going to help you. And you can't say anything than that. Now, to be clear, I'm not a doctor. I can't give you medical advice to cover myself with the shitbags at YouTube. And you should not take medical advice from me. But you have to take medical advice from them and the shitbags that they approved. And I don't know, you might want to double check on some of the information you're getting from the shitbags, because they don't have your best interest in heart. They have their practice, the money they're making, and whatever deal with the devil they signed in order to provide information to you. And their little deal with the devil to keep money in their pocket doesn't have anything to do with keeping you safe in your life. But it does with following the bullshit narrative, which isn't necessarily going to help you. But what do I know? I'm not a doctor, right? You should talk to your doctor. And I hope that your doctor isn't a left-wing shitbag, because you're going to have a bad experience if your doctor is a left-wing shitbag. Just an FYI, in case you haven't figured it out already. Right, moving on. we've been looking at all these train derailments and just fucking spilling chemicals everywhere. You ever watch those post-apocalyptic movies where the populace of Earth has to abandon it and they have to get on a spaceship and they have to go to another like Earth planet, like Earth alternative, and they have to try and live there because we fucked our own planet up? Now, unfortunately, this almost plays into the Green New Deal shitbags that are bullshitting you about how we all have to own an electric car because it's safer for you than a gasoline engine. Even though in order to get those batteries for the EV cars, they have to drill horribly into the planet and mine these minerals out of the planet to make the lithium to make the battery. The lithium. What the fuck is it? Lithium's a drug, right? To make something, to compose this battery, to make the car that's supposed to be better to the environment, but they destroy the environment to mine and make for you. So the Green New Deal shitbags might end up being right by accident with all of just the fucking I can't even call them natural disasters, or not, but all the disasters that are happening right now. So you've had the train derailment in Ohio. There's been several at this point. But the biggest one that got us all started was the train derailment in Ohio, which dumped chemicals to make like PVC piping, and a chemical that was used in World War I. I forget the name of it, but this stuff burned and put into an arid state, a breathable state, was a poison they used in World War I. So, excuse me, this train derails in Ohio, and there's chemicals everywhere. The people of the town, there's a weird kind of mixed shade in their water, like you had poured oil or coolant into the water. It was like a sickly rainbow color. People were showing videos of this, and people were complaining of like itchy rashes on their body and having a hard time breathing. And, this chemical was pouring out all over the place, potentially getting into the water. And then the train companies and the environmental company, they set it all on fire in order to burn this stuff up so it couldn't bleed into the ground and into the water sources more. So, and then there's been some additional train derailments. There was one in Massachusetts. There was another one in North Dakota, where they've derailed, crashed, poured chemicals all over the fucking place. So, here's a couple more if you think things were going good. So, American Military News reporting a barge carrying 1,400 tons of hazardous materials crashes in the Ohio River. Again, Ohio is just going to be a fucking wasteland. It's going to be a Mad Max video of the water in the lakes on fire and everyone fucking mutants, like tranny mutants. And the Coast Guard is investigating. A barge carrying 1,400 tons of toxic methanol broke loose from a tugboat early Tuesday and has become submerged in the Ohio River after crashing into a dam in Kentucky. Officials said the U.S. Coast Guard is investigating the incident. According to a press release from Louisville officials, a vessel hauling 11 barges made contact with a stationary structure at the entrance to the Portland Canal near the McAlpine Lock and Dam. And Stu Peter, what the fuck kind of name is Stu? I'm Mr. Peters. What's your first name? Stu? Stew me right up. Are you making a stew? I'd love to have me for dinner. He says on Twitter, disaster alert. Barge carrying 1,400 tons of toxic methanol has become submerged in the Ohio River. Multiple disaster teams on the scene. He has some video. We'll play it right now. It shows the barge partially submerged in the water, with obviously these chemicals getting into the water at this point. And it's a helicopter overhead taking video of it. So for the audio listeners, that didn't help you at all. As a result, 10 of the 11 barges broke loose, with 3 barges settling against a lower McAlpine dam structure, the release continued. In addition to methanol, the cargoes also carried soy and corn. Well, the soy and corn isn't going to do anything. Officials said there is currently zero evidence of a tank breach or any leaks, and air and monitoring resources are in place. All barges are accounted for as of Tuesday. This is last Tuesday, last week. Safety is the top concern, safety of the public and first responder personnel. There's currently no impact to Louisville Water's water intake or water quality. You're fine, don't worry about it. The river waterway is open through the use of the local vessel traffic services, the release stated. The disaster in the Ohio River comes days after a Canadian Pacific train derailed and leaked hazardous materials in North Dakota. It's one of the other ones I was talking about. According to a Valley News Live, authorities said 31 cars of the 70-car train derailed near Windermere, before leaking petroleum, which is used in the production of asphalt. Authorities said the public is not in any danger as a result of the wreck. There's asphalt in your water. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Hazardous materials experts with Canadian Pacific responded to the scene, and Richland County Emergency Manager Brett Lambert said the train's oil is flammable, but a fire is unlikely because the car's derailed in the snow, which solidifies and cools the oil, KVRR reported. So there is zero chance of setting a fire in the snow for anyone that's ever been hunting, ice fishing, or done anything else, and has in fact started a fire in the snow. But there's no problem. Don't worry about it. Listen, a train full of chemicals crashed and spilled shit all over the place. The important thing out of all of this is to realize there's no impact to the environment and you're fine. You're completely fine. Stop worrying. Why are you worrying? Go do your thing and drink that tap water and drink your well water. There are no issues here. I don't know why you're making such a big deal out of it. Just in case that all of these wrecks aren't quite enough, here's another one. Fox Business. BNSF train carrying ethanol in Minnesota derails and catches fire, forcing evacuations in a small town. Burlington Northern Santa Fe says 22 cars from a train have come off the tracks in Raymond. A Minnesota town outside of Minneapolis has been ordered to evacuate Thursday morning after a train carrying a form of ethanol and a corn syrup liquid derailed and caught on fire, police say. Burlington Northern Santa Fe, BNSF Railway, told Fox Business that his train came off the tracks near Raymond around 1 a.m. local time, and no injuries reported, other than the horrible chemical spill. There are no injuries. Zero. Fire departments from Raymond and numerous area departments responded as several of the derailed tankers started on fire, but it's perfectly fine, and were determined to be carrying a form of ethanol and others with a corn syrup liquid, the Kandiyohi County Sheriff's Office said in a statement. The evacuation area of 1/2 mile was established around the crash site, and law enforcement officers and other EMS assisted with the evacuation. The statement continued. Residents were instructed to leave their homes because it's perfectly fine, but leave your homes anyway. And an emergency collection site for those with nowhere to go was established at the Central Minnesota Christian School building in nearby Princeburg, Minnesota. Here's a picture of the trail derailment on fire, and it looks great. 22 cars derailed in Minnesota, and that just looks like it's not an issue at all. Police say there is a fire still in the process of being contained Thursday morning, and no travel is advised to the city of Raymond. Again, everything's fine. Raymond has a population of around 780, according to census data. Really? 780 fucking people, or 780,000, and it's a typo? 780. BNSF said approximately 22 cars carrying mixed freight, including ethanol and corn syrup, are reported to be derailed. BNSF field personnel are responding to assess the derailment site and will be working closely with local first responders. It's added, noting that the main track is blocked and an estimated time for reopening the line is not available. Probably because a whole bunch of fucking train cars are on fire in the middle of it. So who knows when it'll open? BNSF field personnel are responding to assess the derailment site and will be working closely with local first responders. It added, noting that the main track is blocked and an estimated time for reopening the line is not available. The cause of the derailment was not immediately clear. It seems like all the cars failed and you're not taking care of them. That certainly seems a possibility. A train that runs on a track and then it fucks up and it crashes and there's nothing else on the track. It wasn't like a supervillain trying to rescue another villain on it. That didn't happen, right? So what happened? And I'm guessing My guess, equipment malfunction. It happened after a train operated by the Canadian National Railway Company derailed near Pittsburgh on Wednesday and follows Norfolk Southern's Ohio derailment that spewed toxic chemicals into the community of East Palestine, sparking outrage from residents and calls from lawmakers for tighter safety standards. In that incident, a CN spokesperson told Fox Business that 15 rail cars containing iron ore derailed near Slippery Rock. It is slippery, as the name denotes. Pennsylvania. There are no dangerous goods on the train, and there are no fires or injuries aside from the iron ore. Their statement added, the cause of that incident remains under investigation as well. On Sunday, a train operated by Canadian Pacific derailed in the suburb of Chicago. 2 of the train's cars came off the tracks around 12:45 p.m. Sunday in Franklin Park, which is about 4 miles south of Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. Now, in the train company's defense, Chicago's a shithole. If you had a train crash and spew chemicals into the air, everyone would just be like, so it's like Tuesday? We don't fucking notice. If we're not being shot, we're being choked by one of your trains. I'd rather that, I suppose, than a gang shooting. Or no, maybe the other way around, because you're going to choke to death from the chemicals from the train. So I suppose the drive-by shooting. Either way, Chicago's a shithole. The company said in a statement to Fox 32 Chicago that one of the derailed cars was carrying wheat while the other was empty, so no one's getting bread this month. The train was wobbling a bit. Are trains supposed to wobble? I'm not a train professional in any way, shape, or form. I imagine they're not supposed to wobble. We heard loud noises, banging and crashing. That also appears to be a bad sign. Again, I'm not a train aficionado. Tyler Verschelden Schnell, a witness told the station. So more interesting things happening with that train derailment. And just in case you're worried about the poisonous chemicals that are being poured into the ground, how would you like to additionally run low on food? So there's been a couple of stories. I don't know if I covered them all, but I did a couple of them, where there was like a chicken factory that caught on fire and like 10,000 chickens died. I think it was Minnesota. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. And more fires at processing facilities, right? You notice you go to buy a dozen eggs and it's like $50 to buy a fucking dozen eggs now. It's ridiculous. So all these are going up and we're losing our food stores slowly but surely. So a video trailer carrying 42,000 pounds of chicken catches fire on a Texas highway. A trailer carrying 42,000 pounds of frozen chicken. So they're already dead, but we still needed to eat them in order to live. Chicken caught fire on the highway in Dallas, Texas on Wednesday. According to police, the brakes on the 18-wheeler overheated and caught fire. The driver immediately disconnected the truck from the trailer as the trailer became engulfed in flames. Fox 4 reported. Good on him. A video posted on Twitter, though, why were his brakes overheating? Video posted on Twitter shows smoke billowing above the blaze and a significant emergency response. This media includes potentially sensitive content. Dead chickens on fire? That's sensitive content? Shut the fuck up. You fucking queers at fucking Twitter. This is sensitive. Don't watch it. What is it? It's already dead processed chicken that's on fire in a truck. Why is that awful? Because I don't like violence of any kind. All right, so here's a video. Somebody is posting this video from their personal vehicle. It's showing emergency response vehicles on the side of the road and a big fire coming from there. From our audio listeners, I'm describing it to you because you can't see it, obviously. And they're showing the trailer on fire, and, you know, the fire's pretty good for... how does frozen chicken catch fire? I understand you cook it when you put it in the oven, but you fucking catch it on fire in a trailer? The driver was on his way home from Arkansas to California when his trailer caught fire. Also on Wednesday, why didn't you have a chicken cookout if there was a fire in the trailer and it was frozen chicken? It's all getting cooked. Take it out and then set up a buffet on the side of the road. Authorities in Kentucky continue responding to a barge carrying 1,400 tons of toxic methanol, which I just read to you, that broke loose from a tugboat earlier Tuesday, become submerged in the Ohio River after crashing into a dam. The official said the U.S. Coast Guard is investigating the incident. As a result, 10 of the 11 barges broke loose, with 3 barges settling against the lower McAlpine Dam structure. The release continued. This is from that previous story, in addition to the chickens burning. In addition to methanol, the cargo also carried soy. Well, I already fucking know. Who gives a fuck? Safety is a top concern. Is it? Because it doesn't seem like that. Everything's fucking blowing up, derailing, and fucking catching on fire. So safety seems to be on the wayside for some of this. Safety of the public and first responder personnel. There is currently no impact to Louisville Water's water intake or water quality. The river waterway is open to the use of local vessel traffic services. They're talking about the methanol, not the chickens burning. The chickens are going to make the water bad? There's fucking assholes in this fucking... All right, so if that hasn't been enough bad stories for states and cities getting fucked over with crashes, chemical spills, and whatnot, here's another one. So CBS Philadelphia, tap water officially safe. Maybe. There should be a question mark after that, or some sort of exclamation which says we're not 100% sure. After chemical spill, Kenny says. Let's see who this asshole Kenny is. Philadelphia's tap water will not be impacted by the chemical spill in Bucks County last week. Mayor Jim Kenny, so the aforementioned shitbag from that title, said during a press conference Tuesday night. Kenny said the city can confidently rule out the threat from a spill, because as we all know, when chemicals spill into the ground or into your water, there is absolutely nothing to worry about because the magic makes it all go away. I repeat, he says, to make sure that you feel calm, all the city's drinking water is safe to drink and will not be impacted by the spill, Kenny said. Drink it. Good fucking luck. I'm grateful that no residents were exposed to unsafe chemicals in the city's tap water following the spill, Kenny added in a statement. This is a result of the swift action, caution, and preparedness of the fucking crash of city departments and partners, as well as their commitment to ensuring the well-being and health of all Philadelphians. No further advisories will be needed, and no contaminants from the spill were ever found in Philadelphia's water system, according to the city, and you should definitely believe them. The city said Philly tap water is officially okay for all to use. Based on water sampling conducted Tuesday morning, the Philadelphia Water Department sent CBS Philadelphia behind-the-scenes pictures that show chemists sampling and testing the water. And that's definitely the water from the main waterways, and not something they took from one of these assholes in this picture's water bottles. Mike Carroll, the city's deputy managing director for transportation, infrastructure, and sustainability, proposed a tap water toast Tuesday evening. He and Kinney then took a big swig in an effort to prove the city's water is safe. I would love to prove that you are drinking city water, because I don't believe you. Thrilled that the mayor is able to announce the all clear for Philadelphians to enjoy their drinking water is contaminant-free, and we can all enjoy to drink, to cook with, wash, and whatever you want. Rub it all over your body. Good luck. It was just a fucking train crash with horrible chemicals. So I'll drink to that, Carroll said, and this Democratic shitbag is drinking a glass of water, and you can assume that it came from local tap water and not his bottled water in the green room. Over 100 additional samples were taken by the PWD, regional water utilities, the U.S. Coast Guard, the PA Department of Environmental Protection, and the EPA, and no detectable levels were ever found associated with the spill. With data showing no threat to public health, the city said it's ending the ongoing advisories about the monitoring the Baxter drinking water treatment plant. But, out of an abundance of caution, right? There's nothing to fucking worry about. However, just to be fucking safe, the city, along with the PA Department of Environmental Protection, will continue enhanced monitoring at Baxter for spill-related material. The Baxter plant is one of the 3 main water treatment facilities that provide water to the city's residents. Philadelphia residents west of the Schuylkill, fucking stupid, were not potentially impacted by the spill because they received their water from a different water plant. So in this picture for our live viewers, you've got potentially impacted in orange and green impacted over here to the left. Earlier on Tuesday, the city said tap water would be safe to use through Wednesday night, but that has been rescinded. Other areas in the Delaware Valley, like New Jersey and the surrounding suburbs, were never impacted in the spill. New Jersey and Philly have got a lot more problems than impacted water. I can promise you of that. New Jersey American Water lifted their voluntary conservation order for customers in Camden, Gloucester, and Burlington counties. They say their Delaware River plant was not impacted by the chemical spill. The chemical spill happened last Friday at Trinzio Altoglass LLC in Bristol, Bucks County. The city says the spill of 8,100 and 12,000 gallons of a latex emulsion product, because nothing says fresh in your drinking water than latex emulsion product in it, made its way into Otter Creek and then into the Delaware River. But we can assure you Otter Creek and the Delaware River are fine. That chemical almost immediately just fucking turns into dust and blows away. The product that spilled is known for making headlight covers, according to a release. Would you like to liquefy and drink your headlight cover? Would you believe it's safe? If we said to you, enjoy the Pennsylvania water, it is essentially the essence of liquefied headlight covers. Shortly after the spill, the city said intakes at Baxter were shut down as a precaution. The initial advisory on Sunday, recommending residents to use bottled water, sent Philadelphians into a frenzy. Residents across the city hit their nearest grocery stores to stock up on bottled water with fears of the spill potentially impacting Philadelphia's water system. Wouldn't you? But hours later, the initial advisory and the city sent another one saying tap water once again is safe to use. It's fine. Enjoy your fucking synthetic headlight cover water. It's fine. It's don't worry about it. Would you like to glow in the fucking dark? Would you like to be able to be completely transparent and seen through like your headlight covers on your car? We're just asking this question purely out of curiosity, not because we dumped a chemical in the water that makes headlight covers. We're just curious about how you feel about things in your personal life. Would you like to be translucent and see-through like your headlight cover? Residents across the city hit their nearest grocery. Okay, blah, blah. But hours later, after the initial advisory, the city sent another one saying the water's safe to use. The messaging on whether the water was safe or not frustrated residents. It would frustrate me as well. Kenny defended the message Tuesday. Of course he did. He's a left-wing Democrat shitbag, saying he didn't regret the way the city handled the issue. It's fine. Enjoy your liquefied headlight covers. CBS Philadelphia asked city officials again Tuesday if they would have done anything differently after seeing the panic and confusion from the start. We provide the information that people need, and we want to make sure we provide as much information as possible because we believe more information is already better, Carroll said. You definitely shouldn't listen to people like Fauci, who's going to give you a bunch of lying information, as I most likely am as well. At the same time, it continues, they say they will see what that they can do better. We're going to take a look at how things worked. We'll get involved in a lot of after-action work to make sure we can refine our approach, Carroll said. We're going to do some fucking shit. We're going to be out there. We're going to be putting some fucking vials in. We're going to be testing some shit. No fucking doubt about it. Don't worry about it. We're all worried. Anyone with a functioning brain is fucking worried. There was a video, speaking of people that should be worried. They were in Washington, D.C., so there was Bowser, the very appropriately named mayor of D.C., who's named after the evil villain from Mario Brothers. And they did this documentary, this thing, where her and Fauci were going around to residents in the area and offering to give them the COVID-19 shot right then and there. It's on video. So, and these are predominantly black neighborhoods. So they're going to these people and they're trying to bullshit them into getting it. And the residents are like, I'm a little concerned about it. I'm concerned about the information and I don't like what you haven't given us a lot of information or tests or, long-term information on it. And we're all kind of concerned about it and things that we've heard from other people. So I don't think we're going to get it. And it's just it's hilarious. And some of them are, and not because they're black, don't fucking flip out about it. because it could have been a white community too. A lot of them were not overly educated or informed people. But they knew enough to have their concerns about this being brought to their attention and saying, no, thank you. I don't want this. Maybe not as nice of terms, but saying, no, I don't want this. And Fauci and Bowser being like, well, fucking, it's fine. Just let me tell you about the numbers and about the fucking shit. And even these people who are not in the know, not in the political spectrum of all of it, right, are like, no thanks. Like, you know, if you walk up to me with a fucking dildo and you're like, if I shove this thing up your ass, it's going to make you feel better. And they're like, I just don't think a dildo up my ass is going to work. I don't want it. Thank you very much. And they were just saying no to the T-virus. And it was just funny seeing them struggle and be frustrated with talking with these people because they weren't white, so you couldn't shit on them and say that they were following a conspiracy theory or they were Trump supporters. They were from the black community, so you couldn't shit on them from that because they can't be victims. And you couldn't say, well, they're just uneducated and they're stupid, or they're buying right-wing rhetoric, and this is the reason they won't take it. You couldn't say that because they weren't from that demographic. They weren't from that political affiliation. So you had no choice but to try and just have the conversation with them, and they were like, yeah, I don't want, and then you want to give it to my fucking 5-year-old too? Like, how about no? And I like seeing the video. You can see it online. It was some fucking documentary or live thing that they were all videoing live as they're going through these DC communities, and they're trying to give people the T virus, and they were like, no thanks, you can fucking shove it. And good on all of those people for having the just the wherewithal to say no thanks, I'm good. All right, so moving on here, and, you know, I have to be careful about that because I who knows if fucking YouTube's going to cancel me. I didn't say anything specific. Talk to your doctor. Don't talk to fucking Mayor Bowser and Fauci. Talk to your personal doctor. I'm not a doctor. Don't take any advice from me. It's news and opinion and humor I'm doing here. And I'm just chatting about it. That's it. All right. So, one of the things that I've been seeing here, and maybe it's ignorance on my part, but I thought we were done in Syria. We were just not bothering with that place anymore. And apparently it's popping off over there. So we're about to go to war with China. And it certainly seems like it's looming on the horizon. And they want to invade Taiwan. We've got Russia currently invading the Ukraine. And that's still happening. We're still sending weapons and money and everything else. But we're like, you know what? We could focus on these two, but fuck Syria. And we're in Syria, and U.S. troops are being attacked in Syria, and we're fighting and bombing in Syria. The whole thing's blowing up over here. So here's the BBC News. Welcome to the BBC. So a brief guide to who's fighting whom. Who is fighting whom? Welcome to the BBC. The conflict in Syria is often referred to as a civil war, meaning a conflict between citizens of the same country. It certainly started as an uprising of Syrian citizens. They took to the streets in 2011 to demand democracy and to end corruption, and their opposition to the government of President Bashir al-Assad quickly spiraled into a war. But if you look at today's headlines, it's clear that what is happening today in Syria is far more complex. Some of the most powerful countries in the world are involved, as are an alphabet soup of armed opposition groups, the Kurds, and of course the so-called Islamic State. So what is everyone doing in Syria? It's complicated, but the best way to start is by looking into the war as a conflict between those who, in broad terms, support and oppose Mr. Assad and his government. Mr. Assad. Excuse me. Mr. fucking Assad. On the Syrian government side, we have Russia carries out airstrikes and provides political support at the UN. Iran provides arms, credit, military advisors, and reportedly combat troops. Hezbollah, which is a a military, terrorist wing of Iran. The Lebanese Shia movement has sent thousands of fighters. Shia Muslim militias recruited by Iran from Iraq, Afghanistan, and Yemen. And on the other side of the rebels, we have Turkey, provides arms, military, and political support. Gulf Arab states provide money and weapons. The U.S. provides arms, training, and military assistance to moderate groups. Jordan provides logistical support and training. The term rebels is used to describe a huge and diverse array of fighters, some of whom cooperate with the jihadists like those from Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and Al-Qaeda linked alliance. Different foreign states often back different rebel factions. At this point, it's also worth noting that although the U.S. supports some rebel groups, it has not intentionally attacked the Syrian government directly until Friday, when it fired missiles at an airbase used in an alleged chemical attack. Wait, what? I've definitely heard about U.S. strikes in Syria before. Yes, you have. But those were targeting ISIS 15 or IS militants as part of an international campaign that began in September of 2014. Lots of other countries are taking part, including the UK, France, Jordan, several Gulf states. Basically, IS exploited the war in Syria to... Is that supposed to be ISIS with one less S? Who the fuck is IS? You don't explain it. We're the is. What are you doing? We is doing what we need to do, and you don't need to fucking worry about it. To carve out a large part of the country from the caliphate, whose creation it proclaimed 3 years ago. This is where the battle lines get blurry. The Syrian government and Russia are also bombing is... We is doing what we doing, sucker. Don't worry about it. But separately to the U.S.-led coalition. So it sounds like a bunch of black ladies are like, what are you doing? We is! Mind your damn business! So a bunch of angry black ladies are attacking Syria. I don't know. So think about it like this. Syrian rebels and their backers are fighting the Syrian government and their backers. And both sides are fighting is... Is just wants to twerk and do music videos and they won't be left alone. Although Is wants to overthrow the government, it also violently opposes the rebels. Easy. There's just one more piece of the simplified puzzle. Introducing the Kurds. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, is a saying that doesn't apply in Syria. Kurdish people living in Syria's north declared the creation of an autonomous government in areas under their control in 2014. This added a fourth dimension to the widening conflict. The Kurds, who say they support neither the government nor the opposition, have been battling Is... Why you is not be minding your damn business along the Turkish border. They have benefited from considerable military support from the U.S., which sees them as one of the most effective anti-IS forces on the ground. What is IS? IS control. Internal Syrian? I have to imagine that what it is. An internal Syrian control. Or is. What a fucking name. You couldn't come up with anything else? Turkey is also fighting Is. And why it is, you ain't minding your own business. But in this case, the enemy of their enemy is also their enemy. Didn't you already say that in the previous thing? Basically, Turkey sees the Kurdish people Popular Protection Units, YPG, at least it ain't Is, militia in Syria as an extension of the outlawed Kurdistan Workers' Party, PKK, which has been fighting the Turkish militia for decades. To prevent Syrian Kurds establishing a continuous autonomous region along its border, Turkey has carried out airstrikes on the YPG and backed the Syrian rebel offensive that drove Is out of the last bit of territory not controlled by the YPG. Okay, so they say, okay, hang on. You never explain why all these foreign powers are involved in the first place. Good question. Why the fuck do we care about Syria? Russia has military interests in Syria. Yeah, because that's because we backed off in like the Obama administration or before and said, we don't want to back off on Syria. It's going to cost us too much. We don't really give a fuck about Syria. Why doesn't some other country step in? And Russia was like, sure, we will step in. We'll fucking fix the whole thing. So we turned over Syria to Russia. And that's the reason they have interests in Syria. We opened the door and gave it to them. And it continues, including its own Mediterranean naval base and an air base in Latakia province. It intervened at the request of the Syrian government and said its motivation wants to fight terrorism. Analysts say it also wants to bolster its influence in the Middle East and globally by being the key player in Syria. Iran sees Mr. Assad, a member of the heterodox Shia Alawite sect, as its closest Arab ally. Syria is also the main transit point for Iranian weapon shipments to Hezbollah in Lebanon. And as I told you, Hezbollah is a proxy for Iran. They're a terrorist group who end up attacking Israel as well. And this is just their militant. Hezbollah is to Iran what Antifa is to the Democratic Party here in America. It's their terrorist wing that attacks as proxy for them. So regional Sunni powers like Saudi Arabia oppose Iran's influence in Syria, whose population is predominantly Sunni. The U.S. began backing rebel groups because it said Mr. Assad was responsible for widespread atrocities. But in the last 2 years, it's been more focused on the battle against IS. And President Donald Trump suggested only days before the Friday's missile strike that getting Mr. Assad to leave power was no longer a priority. This is a little older. Some of the other information here, there's relevant information into the breakdown of what's happening in Syria. But there was more direct attacks. No, I don't need the fucking fuck off. So we're going to get the most recent news from Syria here because there's more updates coming out of there. So this is from the BBC, just so I can kind of follow up with this because I don't want to give you old information. Cool. I get 10 different fucking news. Why can't you give me a regular update on this? Okay, awesome. That's fucking useless. Biden vows U.S. will forcefully protect our people as Iranian-backed groups launch more attacks on U.S. troops in Syria. So now we've got more attacks against the U.S. in Syria, which has been, and this is why it's ridiculous. So Syria, which is being helped by Iran, who we're trying to make a nuclear deal with and giving them money, giving them concessions and saying, will you please not develop a nuclear program? Pretty please with sugar on top. So the Iranians are backing Syria at this point in attacking U.S. military forces. In fact, there was just another story about Iran shooting down a military drone or attacks on more military bases. So Iran is an enemy that we should not be negotiating with in any way, shape, or form. We're doing it anyway. And now they're attacking military forces in Syria. So, let's see here. President Joe Biden emphasized Friday afternoon that the U.S. will forcefully protect our people. Yeah, like you did in Afghanistan when you let 13 soldiers die in our absolutely botched retreat. A day after approving retaliatory airstrikes in response to a drone attack by an Iranian-backed group in Syria that left 1 American dead and more injured. But it seemed the president's actions and warnings from U.S. officials had not deterred the attacks, as shortly before he spoke, another American service member was injured in a separate strike in Syria. Make no mistake, the United States does not, he said again to make sure he's clear, seek conflict with Iran. Why? When they're attacking our forces. This is why the Democratic government are a bunch of pussies. We're constantly trying to make deals with Iran instead of just shutting them down. And it's not the people of Iran. It's the corrupt government of Iran, just like the corrupt dictatorial government of China. The concern is here, if Iran makes nuclear weapons, they hate the Jews. They hate the Israelis. Their first move, because they won't necessarily be able to reach us, but their first move will be to send a nuke to Israel and wipe it out. Not only is it the genocide of the Israeli people, but obviously our ally. And that's as soon as they get that opportunity, that's what they would. That's an action that they would take, and they would take over. They want control of all of that region and the removal. They've already said it several times: the destruction of Israel, wiped off the map. That's what they want, which should never be allowed to happen. So this continues. But it seemed that the president's actions and warnings from U.S. officials had not deterred the attacks, as shortly before he spoke, another American service member was injured in a separate strike in Syria. Make no mistake. I already read that fucking shit from idiot president. All right. That's exactly what happened last night. It continues. He went on. We're going to continue to keep up our efforts to counter terrorist threats in the region. The president's remarks marked his first public comment since the U.S. carried out a strike Thursday evening on Iranian facilities that the Pentagon said were used by groups affiliated with the Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The response, which the Pentagon said was proportionate and deliberate action intended to limit the risk of escalation and minimize casualties, came after a suspected Iranian drone struck a facility housing U.S. personnel in the country, killing an American contractor and wounding 5 other U.S. service members. On Friday, another U.S. service member was injured but in stable condition following a rocket attack near oil and gas fields known as Kanako in the vicinity of Deir ez-Zor in Syria, a U.S. official confirmed to CNN. On the evening of March 24th, 2 attacks targeted U.S. and coalition forces in Syria. At 10:39 p.m. the Syrian local time, multiple rockets targeted coalition forces at mission support site Kanako, the official said. The official said, take a shot every time they say the official said. A second attack occurred at approximately 11:23 p.m. Syrian local time when 3 one-way attack unmanned aerial vehicles targeted Green Village. 2 of the 3 unmanned aerial vehicles were struck down by coalition air defense systems. The attack on Green Village, a U.S. base in northeast Syria, did not result in injuries but did leave 1 building damaged, the source said. Biden said Friday that his heart and deepest condolences, like anyone gives a fuck, from this dementia-ridden idiot, went out to the family of the contractor killed, and the president wished a speedy recovery for those wounded. An official familiar with the matter told CNN that the other service members injured in the Thursday strike were in stable condition. Earlier Friday, 10 rockets had targeted Green Village, where some of the 900 U.S. troops in Syria are based. There were no injuries to U.S. or coalition personnel and no damage to facilities. The Pentagon said in a statement 1 rocket, however, missed the coalition facilities by 5 kilometers and hit a civilian's home, injuring 2 women and 2 children, a CENTCOM statement said. The strikes are likely to increase tensions with Iran, with which the proxy groups are aligned. Though Tehran isn't always involved in directing attacks that they conduct, the U.S. has already sanctioned Tehran for providing attack drones to Russia to use in the war in Ukraine. And on Thursday, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Mark Milley, that fucking left-wing shitbag, reiterated U.S. concerns that Iran has the potential to produce enough fissile material for a nuclear weapon in less than 2 weeks and manufacture one within months. So you think Iran is going to stop producing the nuclear weapon and go, oh, sure, we'll work with America. They fucking hate America. We don't see escalation with Iran. Why not? He said. But the strikes that we took last night were intended to send a very clear message that we take the protection of our personnel seriously and we'll respond quickly and decisively if they're threatened. Yeah, then why won't you just attack Iran then? Because they're going to come up with a nuclear weapon. It's just a matter of time. And they don't give a fuck about America. But General Milley wants you to read books on, inclusion, inequity, and the books from Ibram X. Kendi about how Black Lives Matter and whites are all racist. That's what General Milley from the Joint Chief of Staff wants you to read. He doesn't want to actually deal with real problems in the real world. He's a left-wing shitbag. So nothing's going to happen with this situation. It continues. The number of casualties from the U.S. airstrike is still being determined, the official said. A UK-based group monitoring the war in Syria, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, claimed that 8 Iranian-affiliated fighters were killed in the airstrikes. Who gives a fuck? CNN could not verify that claim. We're very upset about the theory and human rights. Iranian soldiers were killed. They're trying to kill Americans and allies. Who gives a fuck about Iranians? CNN has reached out to the Iranian Syrian government foreign ministries for comment. Who gives a fuck what they have to say? The Syrian and Iranian governments have not publicly commented, but Iranian state-run press TV cited a military source in Syria saying, the resistance groups reserve right to respond to American attack, and we will take reciprocal action. Iran is an important ally to Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, along with Hezbollah, the terrorist group, and other Iran-backed armed groups. Tehran has helped to prop up the embattled president. The commander of U.S. Central Command, General Eric Kurilla, said the U.S. could carry out additional strikes if there were more attacks. We are postured for scalable options in the face of any additional Iranian attacks, Kurilla said in a statement Thursday evening. Kurilla said Thursday that Iranian proxies had carried out proxies, which is what we're doing in Ukraine. We are acting as a proxy for Ukraine to attack Russia. Now we're talking about the proxies in this part of the world of Iranian proxies, which is Hezbollah and others attacking in Syria and against U.S. forces. Had carried out drone attacks or rocket attacks against U.S. forces in the Middle East 78 times since the beginning of 2021, an average of nearly one attack every 10 days. What Iran does to hide its hand is in the Iranian proxies, Kurilla told a House Armed Services Committee hearing earlier in the day. They use either UAVs or rockets to be able to attack our forces in either Iraq or Syria. Asked if such attacks were considered an act of war, Kurilla said they're being done by the Iranian proxies, is what I would tell you. So technically, it's a yes. But when we do the proxy bullshit, this is the little cheat and the little sneak around that we do in battle. Even in World War II against the Nazis, America was a proxy sending help, fighter pilots, armor, and munitions to Britain and the other European countries to fight back against Germany before we officially entered. So we were acting as a proxy then. We're acting as a proxy now in assisting Ukraine against Russia. And this is how these countries, it's a bullshit technicality of which everyone knows what the deal is. But if Iran wants to fuck with another country or the U.S. or its allies, it doesn't attack directly. It sends proxies, just like we're doing, of Hezbollah and others, so that they have plausible deniability. So they can say, well, listen, we're not in control of what terrorists do with their free time. We maybe do a little business with them, but we're not the ones who told them to go attack the United States or go attack Israel. Hezbollah does whatever the fuck it feels like, and we're not in control. And it's the below-the-radar bullshit game that all the countries play in order to fight back against somebody else without fighting back against somebody else. But everyone knows what the deal is, and everyone knows what the score is. So why is this important, and why am I bringing it up to you other than this increased aggression in Syria? Is that China, Russia, Iran, and then now whatever Syrian allies are all attempting to work together at this point against the U.S. and its allies. This is a new coalition, like Germany, Italy, and Japan were in World War II, except the axis of evil, they were called at the time. But now you've got this much larger group of countries who hate America and its allies, which have decided to work together in a much larger scale in supporting each other. So Russia is already in Syria, right? So they're almost like the de facto controlling group in Syria. Iran hates America, hates the Jews, and they are now allying and making deals with China and Russia as well. China has already got its issues with America, and more information is coming out that's going to damn China with its, participation in the COVID-19, producing COVID-19, and its threatened attacks against Taiwan. And you've got Russia already as opposed to us and having issues with us with its actions in Ukraine. So you've got a new axis forming right now. And this is the precursor for World War. This is what you're seeing. And this is why it's important to go over this. So, all right, let's see where we're at right now. We are an hour and 23 minutes in. But it's a special show, so we're going to wrap up here. So one final story here, and then we're going to get into the new conspiracy theorist portion of our show. But the CDC warns of a Marburg virus after a deadly Africa outbreak. The CDC is sending personnel to assist with the outbreak of the Marburg virus in Guinea, Tanzania. So if you're planning that dream vacation to Guinea or Tanzania, I might recommend that you take a break at this point. But the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is urging travelers to Guinea and Tanzania to be mindful of contracting the deadly Marburg virus. The CDC is sending additional personnel to Africa to assist stopping the outbreak of the disease. The Marburg virus is an infectious disease that has high fatality rates and, according to the World Health Organization, has epidemic potential. This week, the CDC announced that it is sending its National Center for Emerging and Zoonotic Infection Diseases to respond to the outbreaks in Guinea and Tanzania. This is what happens when you fuck monkeys and you do whatever the fuck it is you're doing over there. You get weird-ass fucking diseases. So stop. This week, the CDC urged travelers in Guinea and Tanzania to avoid contact with the sick people. Healthcare facilities in the outbreak areas are to watch for symptoms for 3 weeks after leaving the area. In February, Equatorial Guinea announced the first outbreak of the virus, and the country has since counted officially 9 cases, with an additional 20 probable cases, all of whom have died, according to the WHO. About 1,800 miles away, across the continent, Tanzania is also reporting a Marburg outbreak and has confirmed 8 cases, including 5 deaths, according to the WHO. The virus is a rare and deadly disease which causes fever, chills, muscle pain, rash, sore throat, diarrhea, weakness, or unexplained bleeding or bruising. The Marburg virus can spread through blood or bodily fluids of a person infected with or has died from Marburg, according to the CDC. The virus is also spread by contact with contaminated objects, such as clothing, bedding, needles, and medical equipment, or by contact with animals such as bats. In 2018, at the Queen Elizabeth National Park and the Python Cave, CDC scientists spearheaded a project after tourists in nearby village experience outbreaks of the virus. Health experts investigated where the bats go at night to it's the fucking bats again. At night to better understand how the virus is transmitted to humans by putting GPS units on the backs of bats to track their movements, according to the CDC. So the fucking bat flew right up some fucking guy's ass, and now we got the Marburg. It's fucking crazy, dude. So more bullshit.
Nazi fag.
Yeah, more Nazi fags. That's what the problem is.
Download the Domino's app today and become a piece of the Pie Rewards member to earn points toward free pizza.
Go fuck yourself. Kamala Harris. That fucking cunt. Alright, so this is why the fucking sounds with YouTube is a pain in my balls. But bear with me a second here, because I want to find my soundbite for our newest segment. And this is how unprofessional. How unprofessional this is. But to wrap up the show here, this is the newest portion of our show that I advertise for everyone. So thanks to our sponsors. I Love What I Do Media. Thanks for everybody that's reaching out to me to be able to financially support the show. As I said, the PayPal icon is in the YouTube and Rumble portion. If you enjoyed the show, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you get updates about the show. Subscribe on Rumble. The more followers I get on Rumble, the more I can directly stream on Rumble if I end up with an issue on YouTube. And then, of course, thanks for all our audio listeners that have stuck with us through all of this and continue to do so and continue to join. We've gotten new listeners. So I talked about new changes to the show and new updates, and this is the conspiracy theory portion of the show, where in this part of the show, and we're going to do our little beginning here, in this portion of the show, we're going to be talking about right? How long is this fucking thing? Welcome to the conspiracy portion of the show. And in this part, we're going to be talking about conspiracy theories that end up being true. And if it's true, I'm going to specifically tell you that it is, and this has been proven as existing. And then any of the portions of this show, there's a conspiracy theory that there's not necessarily enough information to back it up, or it hasn't been proven. I'm going to elaborate on that too, just so that we're clear about what we're talking about. So to begin this portion of the show, this brand new segment, I'm going to talk about where the term conspiracy theory came from. Now, over the years, it was kind of used before as conspiracy theory. It's something that we're not 100% sure about, but we have strong feelings or information that is actually the case. But then, with this information here from Snopes, did the CIA invent the term conspiracy theory? So we're going to start with this, then we're going to get into our conspiracy theory. So one conspiracy theory claims that the CIA invented the term in 1967 to disqualify those who questioned the official version of John F. Kennedy's assassination. Conspiracy theories have a long history, but the actual term conspiracy theory emerged much more recently. It was only a few decades ago that the term took on the derogatory connotations it has today, where to call someone a conspiracy theorist functions as an insult. So as you know, anybody that had a opinion over the COVID-19 vaccination, anybody that had a theory about where the COVID-19 came from Wuhan, and other things like that, you were a conspiracy theory, and this term was applied to you to say essentially that you were a nut job and you should not be listened to. So this was coined to be derogatory by the CIA in 1967. So it may come as no surprise that there is even a conspiracy theory about the origins of this label. The conspiracy theory claims that the CIA invented the term in 1967 to disqualify those who question the official version of John F. Kennedy's assassination and doubt his killer, Lee Harvey Oswald, had acted alone. Lee Harvey Oswald. There are even two versions of the conspiracy theory. The more extreme version claims that the CIA literally invented the term in the sense that the words conspiracy and theory had never been used before in combination. A more moderate version acknowledges that the term existed before, but claims that the CIA intentionally created its negative connotations and so turned the label into a tool of political propaganda. The more moderate version has been particularly popular in recent years for two reasons. First, it's very easy to disprove the more extreme claim that the CIA actually invented the term. As a search on Google Books quickly reveals, the term conspiracy theory emerged around 1870 and began to be more frequently used during the 1950s. Even die-hard conspiracy theorists have a hard time trying to ignore this. Second, the more moderate version received a big boost in popularity a few years ago when American political scientist Lance DeHaven Smith propagated it in a book published by a renowned university press. Although they make differing claims about the origin and development of the term, the proponents of both versions invariably point to an official CIA document called Concerning Criticism of the Warren Report as their smoking gun. It was released in 1976 after the New York Times requested it under the Freedom of Information Act. And anyone can do a FOIA. You probably heard this before, a FOIA act, or a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act, where a government agency or another location, if you file a Freedom of Information Act, are obligated to provide you the information that you're looking for. The people that are alien conspiracy theorists, right? There are many of them. There was a book I read called the Opening the Black Vault, I think it was, where this guy that was accumulating information had filed multiple FOIA requests from the NASA, the government regarding Area 51, and they will redact information that's sent to you, but they are obligated to fulfill the requests. And if they don't, it's something that you can pursue further in litigation. The document expresses concern about the considerable number of people who doubted the official investigation into Kennedy's murder, the Warren Commission, which found that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, even though there's a lot of information saying he didn't. It also aims, and we'll get into that another time, It also aims to equip CIA contacts with arguments against those who challenge the findings and the official version of the event. For example, it emphasizes that nobody in their right mind would have chosen someone as unstable as Oswald as a pawn in a larger plot, and it points out the logical fallacies of these internal alternative accounts. So there's the term where conspiracy theory took a dark turn, and it turned into basically to say that you're a nut job and what you're talking about or what you're sharing with your friends is just garbage. It's not true. It's how to shoot you down. So the first one that I'm really interested in here is, and this has been proven as fact, is the government's run MK Ultra program. So this is on Wikipedia. I'm looking at it right now. If you're a live viewer, as you can see, and you can look this up yourself, there's a book that's been written on it, which is called the Chaos, the Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s. I have it in my Amazon Audible library, and I'm going to be listening to it soon. But this was run by the government. It's MK Ultra. Was an illegal human experimentation program designed and undertaken by the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, intended to develop procedures and identify drugs that could be used in interrogations to weaken individuals and force confessions through brainwashing and psychological torture. It began in 1953 and was halted in 1973. MK Ultra used numerous methods to manipulate its subjects' mental states and brain functions, such as the covert administration of high doses of psychoactive drugs, especially and most popularly LSD, and other chemicals, or acid, without the subject's consent, electroshocks, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, isolation, verbal and sexual abuse, and other forms of torture. MK Ultra was preceded by 2 drug-related experiments, Project Bluebird and Project Artichoke. It was organized through the CIA's Office of Scientific Intelligence and coordinated with the United States Army Biological Warfare Laboratories. The program engaged in illegal activities, including the use of U.S. and Canadian citizens as unwitting test subjects. Over 7,000 American veterans took part in these experiments, non-consensually during the 1950s through the 1970s, many of them suing later on. MK Ultra's scope was broad, with activities carried out under the guise of research at more than 80 institutions aside from the military, including colleges, universities, hospitals, prisons, and pharmaceutical companies. There were also brothels, I believe it was used as well. So they would get Johns that would go to meet a prostitute, and the prostitute would drug the John's drink or food or whatever it was, and CIA operatives would be watching the whole interaction from having sex with a prostitute to then after it was over and him having a conversation with her and seeing what information he would more willingly give up when talking to this woman after being drugged. So let's continue on here. The CIA operation using front organizations, although some top officials at these institutions were aware of the CIA's involvement. MK Ultra was first brought to public attention in 1975 by the Church Committee of the United States Congress and Gerald Ford's United States President's Commission on CIA Activities within the United States, also known as the Rockefeller Commission. Investigative efforts were hampered by CIA Director Richard Helms' order that all MK Ultra files be destroyed in 1973. The Church Committee and Rockefeller Commission investigations relied on the sworn testimony of participants and on the small number of documents that survived Helms' order. In 1977, a Freedom of Information Act, again that FOIA Act, request uncovered a cache of 20,000 documents relating to MK Ultra, which led to Senate hearings. Some surviving information about MK Ultra was declassified in July of 2001. According to Stephen Kinzer, the CIA project was a continuation of the work begun in World War II-era Japanese facilities and Nazi concentration camps on subduing and controlling human minds. Kinzer writes that MK Ultra's use of mescaline on unwitting subjects was a practice that Nazi doctors had begun in the camps at Auschwitz and Dachau. Kinzer gives evidence of the continuation of Nazi agenda, citing the CIA's secret recruitment of Nazi torturers and vivisectionists to continue experimenting on thousands of subjects, and Nazis were brought to Fort Detrick, Maryland, to instruct CIA officers on the lethal uses of sarin gas. The Soviet Union also contributed greatly to the motivation for this project. According to CIA Director Alan Dulles, fear of Soviet brain perversion techniques was palpable. The CIA wanted to diverse itself in this type of mind control to be able to recognize and use in its case of conflict with the USSR. Fear of the enemy ran rampant among Americans, especially upon the sharp increase in PTSD in Korean prisoners of war. The damage incurred on these survivors was so severe that mind control was thought to be the culprit. So the most high-profile case that you're going to be aware of MK Ultra was Charles Manson, the cult leader and the murderer. So they were utilizing Charles Manson, and it is believed to be that they were utilizing Charles Manson in Project MK Ultra. That's why I read you that part and that breakdown of it to get into a little bit of Charles Manson. So Charles Manson and his murderous cult made their mark on American pop culture, even inspiring in 2019 Quentin Tarantino film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, decades after the cult gained notoriety. However, new evidence emerged suggesting that a secret CIA program to research the effects of psychedelic drugs may have contributed to Manson's rise to infamy. In his 2019 book, which I referenced at the beginning of this, Chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s, author Tom O'Neill asked forensic psychologist Alan Shiflin about the potential of tragic consequences of the CIA's experimental mind control program MK Ultra. Was it possible, O'Neill asked, and that the Manson murders were part of an MK Ultra experiment gone wrong? There's information out there that it was. The CIA was drugging Manson, not only in jail, but, and this is not to excuse him for the things that he did, but that they had turned him into a useful cultist and murderer based on these experiments. And Shefflin responded, Manson murders were part of an MK Ultra experiment gone wrong. Shefflin responded, no, it's an MK Ultra experiment gone right. Manson's cult called itself the Family. Its home and an old movie set on the outskirts of Los Angeles became a haven for runaways, drug addicts, and misfits, several of whom were minors. The Manson family shocked America in 1969 when some of its members carried out 9 gruesome murders in Los Angeles. Among the victims was American actress and model Sharon Tate, who was 8.5 months pregnant at the time. The staggering brutality of the so-called crime of the century captured America's attention, as did the subsequent murder trial. The courtroom spectacle featured outbursts and threats by defendants with swastikas carved into their foreheads, which is what Manson did. The modus operandi in the murders was especially sadistic. The killers smeared political messages in their victims' blood, including the words Helter Skelter, the misspelled name of a popular Beatles song. Consequently, Americans face a new reality in which harmless hippies suddenly appeared as harbingers of horror. For its part, the U.S. government was already distrustful of hippies. They were too communist, too leftist, too anti-racist, too anarchist, and too feminist. After Manson's widely publicized trial, public opinion seemed to align accordingly. By 1967, Manson, then 32 years old, has spent half his life in prison for myriad of crimes, including raping a boy. Following his parole that year from California's Terminal Island prison, Manson ultimately made his way north to San Francisco. While in the Bay Area, Manson's inglorious life path took a turn for the truly bizarre. Intersecting with 4 different CIA-funded drug research studies, his participation in 2 has since been confirmed. Manson's parole officer, a Berkeley doctoral student named Roger Smith, was part of a federally funded program researching LSD and drug use among San Francisco's population. His position as a parole officer allowed Smith to provide an element of immunity to his unwitting research subjects. Although he had the power to send Manson back to prison for violating the terms of his parole, Smith never reported the cult leader's numerous infractions. Thus, Manson remained free and hooked on drugs. Roger Smith's tenure at the hot Ashbury Free Medical Clinic allowed him to collaborate with David Smith, no relation, a medical doctor with pharmacology experience and the founder of the clinic. In exchange for federal funding, courtesy of the CIA, the pair researched recreational drug use among their patients. Soon enough, the clinic's doctors and clinicians began to recognize the frequent presence of young runaways and addicts who belonged to Manson's cult. An assistant researcher named Alan Rose took the initiative to visit the Manson family's Los Angeles compound, where he used drugs and participated in bizarre sexual rites. After 4 months of immersive research, Rose returned to San Francisco in 1970. Rose and David Smith co-authored the first scholarly study of the Manson family, the Group Marriage Commune, a case study. Another of the clinic's researchers, Louis Jolly West, ran a clandestine study about LSD and drug use among hippies, a CIA psychologist with a background in deprogramming victims of brainwashing. West refitted a dilapidated Victorian home near the the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic as a fake hippie crash pad, a ploy to study drug addiction and homelessness. West worked for the CIA chemist Sidney Gottlieb, head of the MK-Ultra program. Under Gottlieb's watch, this sordid CIA operation administered LSD to unwitting subjects, attempted to synthesize the ultimate truth serum, and pursued quixotic research into creating the perfect assassin and implanting false memories. After working for Gottlieb at Laclede Air Force Base in Texas and the University of Oklahoma, West moved to San Francisco, where he met Roger Smith and Dave Smith and discovered their work at the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic to fund its various LSD research programs in San Francisco, including a brothel, as I mentioned earlier. The CIA exploited several medical research organizations. A 1976 investigation by the New York Times revealed that the CIA had collaborated with the National Institute of Mental Health, the Foundation's Fund for Research in Psychiatry Incorporated, and the Geister Fund for Medical Research, using them as fronts to conceal its involvement. The CIA terminated MK-Ultra in 1973. For his part, Manson ditched San Francisco for Los Angeles in 1968. A year later, his madness worsened by the CIA's irresponsible LSD research, like he wasn't a fucking nut job before that. Some argue came to his tragic fruition. In researching his book, O'Neill uncovered evidence that Los Angeles law enforcement investigators mishandled multiple aspects of the Manson case, sometimes on purpose. O'Neill also claims that Los Angeles Police Department destroyed records for the 1969 homicide investigation. However, the author concedes that attorney Vincent Bugliosi, a prosecutor in the Manson family murder trial, may simply have forgotten to return the documents which he used to write his 1976 book on the Manson family, Helter Skelter. So let's see if there's anything more. So there were multiple times, and kind of finishing this, where Manson went to jail, and basically it was the CIA assisting to help him get out of jail again. And he'd get more LSD, delve more into his insanity and his cult, and go out and murder more people and do more crimes. But they were studying him the entire time to see the effects, see how it affected Manson, and what more depravity and more things he got into when administering the drugs to him through, obviously, third parties, drug dealers and other people who were keeping him up on all of the drugs. So this is proof of the CIA running a program on the American citizenry using drugs in order to find out what the effects were, how it affected people, and would it have a use in more practical means for them. So this is the part of our conspiracy theory portion of the show. We'll have more next week for next Sunday. Thank you for everyone that's tuned in, followed the show. I hope you enjoyed it. I put a lot of effort into putting all of this together and kind of turning this into something more and getting more viewers, followers, and subscribers. Not to beat a dead horse, please like, subscribe, follow the show on YouTube and Rumble, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast, and multiple other platforms. We'll be posting throughout the week, here and there when I have the time next week, but there will be a dedicated show on Sundays like today with a new new conspiracy theory that is very likely true at the end of the show for everybody to really learn about what's going on out there. You know, you hear rumors about some of these things. Oh, MK Ultra, the CIA was doing something against American citizens. I'd heard that, but I think it's a crock of shit. No, I just showed you everything right here that it is true. It is proven, and MK Ultra did exist. This isn't the only thing. It's happened in the past. It's still happening now. It's just a question of what all of it is. All right? Thanks, everyone, and thanks for tuning in. We'll see you throughout the rest of the week and next Sunday. Thanks. Bye, everyone.